Claire and Anina have some hard copies of the sermon. If anybody would like a copy to follow along, especially if that is easier for your processing, you can raise a hand and they're going to come around with those. There are about 20 copies. I can say up front a thank you to Rabbi Guy Austrian, who acted as a mentor for this and also taught me this little accessible way to add to delivering an oral teaching. At the beginning of Parshat Lech Lecha, Abraham and Sarah famously heed God's command to leave their home. This first act of conviction is immediately followed by another, proselytizing. This might feel surprising to those of us who were taught that Jews don't proselytize. We don't try to find people to convert. But according to our rabbinic tradition, Sarah and Abraham did proactively convert other people. When they leave on their famous journey, they take their wealth, their household, ve'et hanefesh asher asu b'Haran, and the souls that they made in Haran. Rashi, quoting Bereshit Rabbah, explains that these souls that they made are converts. Abraham converted the men, Sarah converted the women. Before leaving town, before even obeying God's command to go, they find people to convert. While I teach today, I want you all to try to channel this vision of Sarah and Abraham. Even if we squirm at the idea of going out and converting others, I'd guess that you do have a belief that you would eagerly convince everyone of right now if you could just snap your fingers and make it happen. You really think it's correct? You really think the world would be better for it? Think of one. Let Sarah and Abraham remind us that it's normal to feel conviction. And yet, it's also normal to encounter people who strongly disagree. Sarah and Abraham travel in a world full of people with different gods, different values. And like them, we all live near someone who disagrees with whatever you just thought of, who disagrees with that thing that you would go out and proselytize for. Like them, we have to choose how we will respond to that reality. This is the question I've been asking myself. What do I do once I've acknowledged that spiritual proselytizer in me and that other people see the world so different? How do I act as a person of strong conviction? I'm going to suggest 3 tools for having strong convictions in mixed community that I learn from Sarah and Abraham in this parsha. They are to make affinity spaces, to act across disagreement, and to hold spiritual humility. The first, to make affinity spaces, I'll suggest from Abraham's altar building. After arriving in their new home, Abraham builds 3 altars, specific places where our ancestors can practice their beliefs in particular community. The Torah says that Sarah and Abraham journey haloch v'nasoa, in stages. They go out, they come back to their altars, they interact, they return to affinity. I know this practice can work well for me. It's not a xenophobic desire to want to sometimes be with only Jews, with only trans people, with only Iraqis. It's rather a knowledge of the truth and safety that we can find in affinity. This is especially true for those of us who experience discrimination in mixed spaces. Time with our people gives us the strength to interact in the wider world. We journey out again in stages like Sarah and Abraham. The second tool, to act across disagreement, I'll suggest from Abraham's war. Abraham's nephew Lot is taken captive by warring kings, and he has a clear need. He needs to free his nephew. We learn that Abraham has 3 neighbors, Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre, referred to as his Balei Brit, his allies. These neighbors have other gods. They have other convictions than his own, but this has not stopped Abraham from getting to know them so well that he can rely on them in a time of crisis. When it's time to act, Abraham the proselytizer makes way for Abraham the doer. When we have a discrete, achievable action that will improve our community, it often takes a coalition to get there. We can learn this from Avraham, who knew how to ally across disagreement. Finally, the third tool I'll call holding spiritual humility. I learned this from what's not in the Parsha, any command to proselytize. That Avraham and Sarah acted to convert others is consistent. It's an enduring midrash in the Targumim, in Bereshit Rabbah, in the Talmud, and none of these sources recount God telling them to convert anyone. In Mishnah Torah, Rambam specifically expands on Avraham's spiritual awakening and details the precise methods of his proselytization. Crucially, God does not speak once in the entire perek, in the entire narrative in Mishnah Torah. In other words, when Sarah and Avraham go out, they're acting without the knowledge that God has told them that their path is the only righteous one. As Sarah and Avraham teach their Torah, they have to hold on to this knowledge. Spiritual humility is less practical than building affinity spaces or alliances. Rather, it's a mindset that we must hold when we interact with the stranger. I can believe that my path is correct, but the Jewish way is to hold enough humility to acknowledge that yours may be too. Hashem never commanded Avraham and Sarah to make everyone conform. Hashem has never told me that you are completely wrong. Part of why I came to JTS in the first place was to study in a mixed setting. The future rabbis who will be ordained this May hold differing beliefs on Torah, on God, and on politics. I've spent these years studying in a mixed space because I believe I'll work in one. 2, I've only suggested 3 tools for how to move and act as a person of conviction, even in mixed spaces. And I feel we must have more Jewish wisdom on how to believe so hard and still love humanity who can be so different from us. This is the Torah that I'm praying to learn more of as I leave this mixed setting for the plural worlds to come. You're welcome to rise as you are able, and I will recite Kaddish D'Rabbanan. Yitkadal v'kadash shmei Rabbah. V'yamad yivrak yirtei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'mechon v'ched chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'rach le'elam v'yom. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitram v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudasha b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata da'amiram v'yalma v'yimru amen. Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Talmidei v'al kol Talmidei Talmidei V'al kol man daskin be'oreita, div atar adain v'div chol atar v'atar, yehelahon l'chon shlama rabba, china v'chista v'rachamim, v'chaim arichin umzona revicha, u'forkana min kadom avahon v'yishmaya v'imru amen. Yesh shlama rabba min ha'shmaya, v'chaim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom yiramav, hu berachamav ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.